Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Movie Battleground. I am not Aaron Knoll. My name is Henry Confidential, and if you're not familiar with me, I'm a competitor to this league, but I'm also one of the longest tenured veterans just being associated with it. So Aaron unfortunately could not host today, so he asked me to step in, and I've hosted one, maybe two matches before, and I've judged a few, so I have a little bit of experience doing this. But it's going to be a blast. I'm not alone. I have three judges that will be introduced later, but before we get to that, we'll get to our competitors. Our first competitor, good buddy of mine, so good thing that I'm hosting and not judging, because obviously I'd be biased and pick him. I'm kidding, guys. But that is Madeeh Raymond. He is 2-0, and he has defeated Madeeh Ur and Ryan Permison. So thank you for that, because we all love when Madeeh Ur gets beat. No, I'm just kidding, Matt. Love you in the background. So you're 2-0. What are your thoughts on your opponent, and what are your thoughts, just generally speaking, being 2-0 in this league, and just your experience debating?
Well, I'm a master debater. Had to throw that in there. Sorry. But no, this one's weird, man. Because Tyler, I think, is kind of new to the debate league. We saw his one match, I think, against JD, but that was kind of like a one-sided debate. Like JD did a lot of the talking, Tyler didn't get a lot in. And then the next match, obviously, he won through different means. But it's weird, like you can't like study up on like how they debate or like prepare for anything. And now that I'm actually taking it seriously, I'm actually trying to prepare. So
you taking something seriously?
I know it's weird. It's weird, man. But I got 1-0, and I was like, you know what? I might as well start trying. But nah, it's weird preparing on this one. But hey, I'm down for the challenge, man. You know me.
There you go. And without giving anything away specifically in terms of question-wise, do you like the questions in general? Is it your forte? Do you kind of have to go outside the box to prepare?
A little bit of both. I think like there's a couple questions that I'm glad that we have on here. There's the one question I always don't like talking about is which one is the worst one.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but
it's a bummer question, and you just like get upset talking about it. I had one with Madeeh Ur that like physically broke the both of us to have to watch the damn movies. It was Rob Zombie movies, man. It was terrible.
Oof.
Like having to watch his films, it was like, oh no, that was the best of it. And it was still hard to do, but you know what I mean though? Like it's like you get like those good like the question writers on this. I think it's Aaron and maybe a couple other guys who are writing the questions, but they're really good questions. So I'm excited to see, and the answers can be whatever. Like it just depends on who you're talking to. So I'm kind of excited to see what he's. I know what my answers are, and I know what his answers are, obviously.
But the approach,
I'm really excited to see what his approach is, especially on. There's two in particular that I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to see where he's going with these ones.
Well, I'm excited to see as well. So we're going to send you to the back, and we're going to introduce your opponent, who is 1-0. As Madeeh kind of said, he has a victory over JD Domash, and then he had an unfortunate cancellation for his next opponent. But he's 1-0 with that said. So Madeeh, after getting a little, Tyler, after hearing a little bit from your opponent, Madeeh, what are similar thoughts on this? You're a little less experienced, just overly, speaking here in the battleground. Do you know your opponent that well? Did you have to do some research? And what are your general thoughts on these questions?
Yeah, being newer, still kind of getting my bearings as far as the debate league goes. It's very different than trivia.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'm familiar with Madeeh. I looked up a little bit of his stuff. Kind of just mostly focusing on me and what I was planning on doing though. But as far as the questions go, so I definitely some of them I'm a big fan of, but there's a couple where I was just like, well, we're gonna get real weird with it, and we're gonna see what happens. There's like a couple you're like, of course, this is what I do. This is the answer. In the middle of the night when you're asking yourself these questions, this is the answer. And then there's other ones where you're just like, you know what, we're just gonna do this, and we're gonna see what happens. So it's a good mix of that. So I'm definitely excited about getting in there and kind of debating and kind of convincing myself, also convincing everybody else that this was the right idea.
There you go. Well, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So here are the rules of the battleground. So there's going to be the first of 3 points. There's a potential 4 real questions, and then maybe even a 5th one, which could be a blind round. 1 point if you get the question right, based on the judges. Like I said, I have 3 excellent judges in the background that will be introduced later. So there's a chance there could be a 3-0 knockout. There's a chance it can be a 3-2, go to that blind round. So we'll see exactly how it goes. So without further ado, I'm excited to hear this. Tyler, are you ready?
Yes, let's do this.
Madeeh, are you ready?
Let's do it, man.
I don't know if we have the right to say this. Let's go to war. So your first question. I'm kidding, guys. So your first
copyright.
Your first question, Tyler is considered the favorite, and he decided that he wants to go first on question 1 and 3. So the first question is going to be, what real life figure should Andrew Garfield play in a biopic? So Tyler, when you begin speaking, you will get 60 seconds for your opening, and have a blast.
All right, so for this one, I mean, I chose Tobey Maguire. The timer's not going. Is that okay? Okay. I chose Tobey Maguire half because half for real and half because obviously with the whole Spider-Man thing, it'd just be kind of funny. But I chose him because we're getting to a point in superhero cinema where we have legacy. I mean, as you saw in No Way Home, and it's Spider-Man is this. I mean, behind Batman is probably the most recognizable of all time, of superheroes of all time, and coming out with Spider-Man, the first trilogy. I would love to see the experiences that went through with that, the friction that he had with James Franco, him not really having looked at a Spider-Man comic book, how he prepared for that role, the trials and tribulations of putting out superhero movies when they weren't, instantly making $1 billion, and kind of seeing how he went through all that and seeing the rest of his career. I've always thought he was very interesting. Ending with Andrew Garfield playing himself and Tobey Maguire.
And time. All right. So that was Tyler's opening. Same thing for you, Madeeh. 6 seconds when you begin speaking.
I had no idea where you're going with that answer, but I'm glad that it went that way. So for my answer, I went with someone that I'm kind of surprised we haven't had a biopic about. It's Stephen King. So Stephen King, everyone kind of knows this. He's one of the greatest authors that we have currently, and probably one of the greatest horror authors of all time. But his life story is one of those stories that you kind of look at and you're like, holy crap, this guy's been through so much. I mean, he wasn't always this literary titan, obviously. When he was a kid, he saw his best friend killed by a train, and then somehow he's like pushed that out of his memory so it doesn't exist anymore within his brain. But obviously that's traumatized him, and that's led to some of the works that he's done. So I really want to see a biopic about Stephen King with Andrew Garfield kind of taking the role, showing him going from like the early stages, having him go through like the times where he's not successful to becoming successful, to his alcohol and drug addictions, to coming past that, and to where he is kind of now. So I'll see the 2 seconds.
And time. Alrighty. So Tyler is going to be next up with a 2-minute rebuttal based on what he said, based on what his opponent said. Let's see what he says when you start speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Okay, there we go. Yeah, just a little bit more for what I was talking about. I mean, there were people crying when Tobey Maguire showed up in No Way Home. Yeah, I think all of us probably. Sorry for people who didn't know about that for the past month. And he's such an important character, and I believe that, and I mean, with Andrew Garfield's an amazing actor. Just to kind of go off on him a little bit too. I mean, the work that he does in biopics is always exceptional. He always brings so much emotion and gravitas to it. And I think that he would really be able to accurately portray a lot of what was going on during that time. A lot of time with Tobey Maguire, Tobey Maguire has always been kind of an emotional guy. So I think he'd be able to really give a lot more gravitas to those situations, to a lot of situations that he went through, kind of enhancing both like the trilogy and Tobey Maguire as in people's eyes. And so I think that, I mean, Andrew Garfield would be great as, Stephen King as well. But I think this one it'd be really interesting. And I think it would be just really timely with the time that we're in right now, with so many people looking back fondly on the original trilogy, looking back fondly on Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in general. And kind of, I mean, I don't want to say like cashing in on that, but like it would just, and this would be like the perfect time to be able to release something that would kind of remind people about how great that original trilogy was, remind them how they felt about it, and then kind of getting people to see it in a new light, and also seeing Andrew Garfield kind of in a way that people are starting to see. I mean, a lot of people were down on Andrew Garfield because of his Spider-Man. They said this or that, but they're finally kind of seeing what he can bring to the table, and this is another way to kind of bridge that gap. So that's all I have on it.
Alrighty, so he's gonna give up the rest of his time. So let the get reset from the clock. And Madeeh, when you are ready, you will have 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of continue on what I was saying as well, and then we'll get into the actual debate part later on. But you know, there's a reason I chose someone like Stephen King, and it's not just because they kind of have the same facial structure, sort of like they both have that kind of squarish chin, but also like when you have someone who's like had such an interesting life and been such an icon in pop culture for the past almost 50 years, because Carrie came out in 1974, which was his first big novel, and for the past 50 years he's still considered like we just had an It movie come out. I mean, Shawshank is still considered a great film based on one of his stories. Like, there's so many of his works that have been taken, but we haven't seen anything about the author specifically. We've seen all these movies about the stuff he's made, but not him. And I really want to see like who he is as a person, because from everything that we can kind of tell, he's not like a bad human. He's not like had anything really crazy happen. Like, he's just had a lot of weird stuff happen. Like, obviously, I mentioned him witnessing his friend's murder as a child. He was in like 1999. He was like accidentally hit by a car and almost killed by his driver, or by a driver, sorry, which left him like very close to like death and like almost paralyzed, and he had to have that whole like rehab thing go on. Like the reason I'm pulling Stephen King is because not only is it an interesting story to tell, but also with an actor with the quality of Andrew Garfield, you want to give him something that's really a juicy role. Like, you want him to do stuff that's really going to push him. And where he's playing someone who's dealing with past trauma, who's trying to be successful, who becomes successful and then has to battle other demons and alcoholism and drug abuse, and then comes past that, gets hit by a car and has to rehab his entire body. And all the while he has his wife like supporting him, and he's still considered this great author.
And time. Alrighty, so that is going to be the back and forth, and now we are going to have the 4-minute open debate where the two competitors are going to battle it out. So 4 minutes. When the first person starts talking, go to war.
I'll let you start, Tyler.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say you finish your thought. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because Stephen King has had such a career, so you always want to you're always curious about what that's going to look like. I'm not. It almost seems like it'd be like too much for one movie. Is my concern, just because I mean with such a long career, so many different things, so many projects and everything. It's like, how do you encapsulate that into one movie? So when I think of like the biopic of him, it's just like, how do you even do something like that? That's like when I saw your answer to it, like that's what I was concerned about.
I mean, I get where you're coming. So the way I saw it, and I have a pitch in mind, but this might also just because I saw the movie recently. So the movie Rocket Man, about Elton John's life, where he's kind of in rehab telling his story, I saw it in like kind of a similar vein, except maybe instead of rehab, or because obviously he's thankfully clean now for the past I think 2 decades or whatever it's been. I saw it as him like kind of writing a memoir and like going through his life and like thinking of what are the big moments, what are the important moments, and like as he's seeing, like writing them down and seeing them in his head, we're seeing them on the big screen. So similar to Rocket Man in that aspect, where he's kind of recounting his own story, and Andrew Garfield is playing him throughout, well, from like a young adult to, and then use makeup or prosthetics when he's older. But that's kind of how I saw it, because I see it as like one of those things where, because there is so much in his life, you're not going to cover everything. I mean, a biopic can only do so much. I mean, like the biopic of Malcolm X was like 3 hours, and it still didn't cover everything in his life. There was so much that was left out that could have been put in. But you still have to tell the best version of the story that you can. So you just have to try and find those parts that are going to be the most important to, number one, Stephen King and his life, but also and how they show themselves in a film. So if you get a good script behind it and you get like the blessing of Stephen King and his family and his estate and everything, I really think this could be a great movie, and Andrew Garfield could definitely kill it in the role.
Yeah, that'd be the hardest part, though, getting Stephen King to sign off on it. It's not really his thing.
Well, it's probably not his thing, but at the same time, I think, it's one of those things where he's gonna. I'm hoping that it happens during his lifetime, so we can kind of give him his flowers. But it's one of those things that you really just hope that he gets to see it, so that we can all see and show appreciation for how his life has come. Because everyone knows his work. People don't really know his story as much, which is kind of upsetting because he's been through so much and he's persevered through so much. And that's kind of going to be what the crux of the movie is that when he was struggling as an author, he still had his wife. He had to get his wife to like help him publish Carrie because he was like, I don't think it's going to be that good. And then they published it. And I mean, the world was never the same, honestly. Like, we've never had an author that good at horror consistently for so long. And then, with the success also came like the downs and everything with the alcoholism and the drug abuse and stuff like that, to the point where he didn't remember that he wrote Cujo, like at all. Like, he had no recollection of it. He just saw it in theaters like, oh, I guess I wrote that. Huh, shit. Then he got sober, and like it's one of those stories that like you see in biopics so often, and I really want to see it. I gotta talk about the Tobey Maguire thing because we haven't really talked about it. I feel like it's one of those things where it'll be fun to see him play Tobey Maguire, but I don't think there's enough there. Like, it would be like maybe like a 30-minute movie of something of stuff that he's done, but it's, I don't know, like most of the stuff that's interesting for Tobey Maguire was in Molly's Game, or it was like pre-Spider-Man. Like, that's the stuff that I would really want to see, other than just seeing Garfield in the Spider-Man suit.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like I'd talk for the whole thing.
I think, well, I mean, you had a lot of facts and stuff.
Yeah.
You're passionate.
that's one word for it. That's one word for it for sure.
Okay, well, that was the quote unquote open round. So we're gonna go over to the closing rounds, and Tyler, you're gonna be first. So luckily for you, you'll have something to say. So when you start talking, time will go.
Let me mute myself real quick. So
yeah, I mean, I think for me, as far as this goes, I mean, I see why Stephen King would be a good choice. There's a lot there. For me, I think it's just superhero cinema is such a big part of my life growing up. I mean, my first movie I saw at midnight premiere was Spider-Man 3. So that trilogy always holds a special place in my heart, and I know it holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts. And so us getting this biopic, it's not so much the amount of what we're going to get, the meat we're going to get. It's going to be that we're getting the story that we'd like to see, the story that we want to see what that behind the scenes was. We want to see Tobey get his due. We want to be able to remember, kind of remember where were we in 2002, 2004, 2007. So getting to kind of see that kind of, especially, for a lot of people, they were Tobey's age at that time. And so, or like Peter's age, not Tobey's age, and so they get to kind of go through that, kind of remember, it's that nostalgia bit, and that legacy.
And time. All right, Madeeh, 1 minute, and then we'll go over to the judges to decide who gets this round. So 1 minute when you start talking, and unmute yourself.
So I feel like I've said enough about the Stephen King thing. I don't want to keep going on to that because obviously, like, we need a high caliber actor for that, and it's a high caliber story, and I think they would fit in together. The Tobey Maguire thing, I think it would be fun, and it would be very tongue in cheek while giving him his flowers and everything. But also, I feel like we all kind of did that collectively in the theater when he came out of the portal. Spoiler alert, I guess. But like, when he comes out, everyone screamed, people cried. I'm a grown-ass man, and I cried and screamed. And my sister, who has kind of seen the Spider-Man movie, she also screamed because she was excited too. I think we all understand, and we all love that Tobey Maguire was involved, and we're glad to have appreciated him again. But I don't think that having an actor of Andrew Garfield's caliber playing Tobey Maguire, who hasn't really got that much meat in his life, you really want to give him something more, and you don't want to just have him do a bit role just because it would be kind of funny to see him play the other guy who played Spider-Man. I just feel like he deserves a better story than just Tobey Maguire's.
And time. All right. So round one is in the books. So what we are going to do is we are going to go over to our judges and we'll let them collaborate and decide who gets the votes. So I will go over based on what's on screen. So Chris Diaz, in 30 seconds or less, give us one main primary point of why you're picking who and tell us who you're picking.
I feel like they were one-sided debate. Madeeh won in the end. He did point out more point why Tyler had an interest in Madeeh to paint a pretty good picture about Stephen King that made me interested in now to see a movie about him. Andrew Garfield.
There you go. And Stacy, in 30 seconds or less, give us one primary point why you're picking who and who you're picking.
I picked Madeeh because I want to see Andrew Garfield starring King. And I just want to say, it is very much Stephen King's thing. The man wrote himself into his book series, made everything a big connected multiverse, was basically the god of it. Okay, so it's very.
There we go. Well, unfortunately, Chad, you don't get to tell us your thoughts this time, but Madeeh will get the first point in question one. All right, gentlemen, going over to question two. Madeeh up 1-0. In question two, as you might see in some of these matches up coming along, Christmas is over, but we're not done talking about it because fun fact behind the scenes, there was a Christmas match that just didn't happen, but we don't want to waste them. So with that said, this second question is going to be, what film that isn't considered a Christmas film should be? So same rules as round one. Madeeh, you're going to be going first. 1 minute when you begin talking.
I feel like I'm also arguing against Kirk Kolakowski on this one because I'm going with Die Hard. I think, first of all, a lot of people do not consider it a Christmas film. Kirk, in our community, we love you, man, but you're definitely one of the bigger outspoken ones. But it is a Christmas film. And I have a lot of research on this one, too. So please cut me off if I get too much, but just, first off, John McTiernan, who's the director, and Stephen D'Souza, who wrote it, have both come out and said that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Everyone, according to Dish Network and a bunch of other places, Die Hard searches go up around November and December and really spike on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, beating out movies like Home Alone and Miracle on 34th Street and The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. And the whole movie kind of fits into a Christmas narrative while also portraying Christmas spirit and Christmas themes. Obviously, John McClane trying to get home to his family and spend time with his family during the holidays, and then gets hit by this huge capitalist organization.
And time. All right. That was Madeeh's opening.
Sorry, not organization. You guys know what I mean.
Strike that from the record. Doesn't count. Tyler, 60 seconds when you've been speaking.
Last year, I did an episode of my podcast where we talked about unconventional Christmas movies, and someone said something to me that really it made everything click that I didn't think it would before. A lot of fantasy movies feel like Christmas movies. So my choice is Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. For me, something about fantasy movies, I mean, obviously they're good year round, but they give you that feeling of the Christmas season. They give you, I know a lot of people who they watch that whole trilogy for Christmas Day, Christmas Eve. It's just kind of something about the tone, something about something about the tone, the writing, the characters. It just really gives you that feeling of Christmas time, merriment, everybody coming together and spending time together, going on epic adventures. And so for me, whenever I think of a Christmas movie that isn't considered a Christmas movie, I always think about Lord of the Rings because of how, I'm running out of time.
All righty. Madeeh, you'll have 2 minutes for your rebuttal whenever you begin speaking.
First off, I appreciate the pun and merriment when you're talking about Lord of the Rings. It's great. So I'm going to spend this 2 minutes going over the most boring aspect of this, and it's going to be stats. So I actually went through and did a whole thing with just statistics. So I said the Google Trends have huge spikes for searches for Die Hard Christmas movie every holiday season. So there's a website called Fandom Entertainment. They did a study on Die Hard as a Christmas movie, and this is some of the stuff that they pulled. So the film has 11 unique Christmas trees in 19 different scenes. Home Alone has 7. Miracle on 34th Street has 1. They have 15 unique Christmas decorations or visual references to it. Home Alone has 29. Miracle on 34th Street has 3. There's 7 Christmas carols placed throughout the film, including Run DMC's Christmas in Hollis, which is a Christmas carol, I don't care what y'all say, as well as Frank Sinatra's rendition of Let It Snow. Also, Ode to Joy, if you guys count that means it's 12. Home Alone had 7. Miracle on 34th Street had 4. The word Christmas is used 14 times in Die Hard. Home Alone has it as 7 times. Miracle on 34th Street has 8. And then 4 other various Christmas references in Die Hard. Home Alone has 10, and Miracle on 34th Street has 4. So that's all of the stats that I'm going to pull out. I'm not going to pull out any more. I'm just saying that compared to these 2 classic Christmas movies, Die Hard has more, or at least on that level of Christmas references throughout the film. Obviously, Alan Rickman saying, "It's Christmas, Theo. It's the time for miracles," is a huge thing. Ho, ho, ho. Now I have a machine gun. Putting on a Santa hat. It's the whole film is based around the fact that it is Christmas and that there is this old man Potter kind of character in Hans Gruber that's trying to be this capitalist villain to steal money. And the entire time you're watching this movie and you're just like, yeah, it has to be. It's not on Independence Day. It's not on Thanksgiving. It's a movie that takes place on Christmas and evokes the Christmas spirit in ways that I'll get into in the next round, I guess.
And just like that, we are going to bounce back over to Tyler for his 2-minute rebuttal when he begins speaking.
Yes, my opponent's very stats minded, and I can appreciate that. That's not really my style. My style is more of the emotional, the emotional resonance. And that's why I chose Lord of the Rings. I think a lot of us just love seeing the hobbits being together, their relationship. That feeling of the family, of the fellowship. Not sure. But just that feeling of like I said, the feeling of merriment, the feeling of togetherness, the journey that they take together. A lot of it just reminds us a lot of the Christmas season, the time that we spend with our families, the time that we spend with our friends. There's snow, so snow, Christmas season, of course. But yeah, and it's just, like I said, the tone of these movies just really just makes you feel like you're kind of, especially with just like fantasy movies in general, but with these movies also, like you feel like you're with them, you feel like you're in the moment. You don't, it's not you're just this detached watcher. You actually feel like you're there. You feel like you're one of the hobbits. You feel like you're part of the fellowship, that you're going through these emotional moments with them. You're going through this journey with them, this difficult journey. You feel like you're really earning something, and I think that feeling of just closeness is really what does it for me. Is it just feels like you're a part of this, and it's something that I always look for whenever it's the holiday season for me personally. As far as I always want to watch movies that just make me feel comfy, cozy, that kind of thing. Something that makes me feel like I'm a part of it. I'm a part of something. As I sit at home in my my slippers and just drink my hot cocoa. So that's really what it is for me. Is it's just that feeling of adventure, that feeling of comfy, cozy, family, friends, adventure, being a part of something. I think that's what resonates with me as far as Lord of the Rings being a Christmas movie.
All righty, and that is time. All right, gentlemen, now it is time to go into the open debate, which, a reminder, go ahead and jump back and forth, have at it, scratch and claw, have some fun, and spit your facts or your opinions. 4 minutes when the first person starts.
I will say there is also snow in Die Hard. Not just the snow at the end, but also the snow that Ellis snorts at the beginning of the movie. But I don't know, like when I think of, like, when you said Lord of the Rings, I was really curious as to what you were going to say, because there's not really any allegories or anything in Lord of the Rings that kind of relates to Christmas, or has that feeling towards it. So I'm not really sure. Like, I get that, seeing like this group of people go on this journey and having them be together is kind of Christmassy. But if you're talking about just the Fellowship of the Ring, they split up at the end. Like, they're like, Gandalf dies, kind of, sort of, and then Boromir dies. Merry and Pippin get kidnapped. Frodo and Sam leave on their own, and then like
Well, yeah, I mean, if you
the
focus on
movie
the
ends with them
ending,
like splitting up, and they're together, and then the whole movie is about Frodo like trying to figure out, can he do this with everyone else, or does he have to do it alone? Because that's kind of what he's facing throughout the majority of their journey through the movie.
right? And I mean, I understand that at the end, if you just take the ending by itself, it's not really very comfy, cozy, friends and family. But I mean, they spend that whole time gathering this group. I mean, come on, think about that moment when the Fellowship, when they all said they'll go with Frodo. I mean, there's very few moments out there that really make you feel, as warm and fuzzy as that moment is, where they say that they'll go with him to Mordor. And I mean,
I also felt warm and fuzzy at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League when they're all standing on the building, and like the bat plane comes down, but that doesn't make it a Christmas feeling. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
I can feel warm and fuzzy in a movie because it's well made and the score comes up. Like, the perfect example, now that I think of a better one, is like New Hope when Luke is staring at the two suns. Like, it's such a great warm fuzzy moment because you're like, all right, yeah, you can see what's going to happen. You know what the journey is, but you still don't equate it to Christmas. Like, there's not really anything in the movie that makes me feel like it's something that is a Christmas must watch.
Right. And I think a lot of it is mainly person to person. I mean, when I saw this question, I think it really just depends on the person, because in my sphere, a lot of people watch these kinds of movies for Christmas. So for me, I equate those with Christmas. As far as Die Hard goes, some people watch that, and they feel that that's a Christmas movie. And it's also, I mean, Die Hard, if we're going to be honest with you, all those facts and all those stats that you're talking about is because of the internet discourse about whether or not it's a Christmas movie. That really
more recently, yes, but they were still there in '88 when it came out.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, if I think back like 10 years ago, I can't really think of anyone ever really talking about Die Hard at all. And then in the past 5 or 6 years, all of a sudden, every year there's a Facebook meme, and all of a sudden we start talking about it again. So it's not really, I don't know many people who watch it during Christmas. I mean, maybe you and your friends are different. Like I said, my friends, we watch fantasy movies. Maybe your friends watch Die Hard. And I think that's really what this is kind of about.
I mean, I guess, yeah, but like, it's not just about like what you're watching on Christmas. It's just about like, so I can watch Home Alone any day of the year. Just because it's a Christmas movie doesn't mean I have to. It just feels more timely when I watch it like around Christmas time. And that's the same with Die Hard for me. Like, I feel like it evokes like the ideas of Christmas more. Like, there's like generosity, goodwill, and altruism, which are like the three basic things if you boil down Christmas spirit. And all three of those are exhibited throughout the movie. Whereas Fellowship has good moments, and it's a great movie. I love the movie, but it's not a movie that you really equate with the holiday season, especially being a fantasy.
You guys see things as what you just said with Die Hard. People being self-sacrificing, people generosity. A lot of the things that we equate to Christmas are things that we see in this movie.
Not really. Like, you see it throughout the series, but not as much in Fellowship as you do throughout the other two. Like, we're out of time, but I don't want to. Fuck. This 4 minutes is bullshit. I just want to point that out.
I was down to give you another minute. I was enjoying.
Honestly, like I had a point, and I looked at the timer. It was like 6, and I was like, no, not gonna rush it.
That's how it goes sometimes. So with that, said, Madeeh, you are going to start your closing, I should say, 1 minute when you begin.
Okay. All right, I'm just going to summarize everything that I've said, hopefully in the 1 minute without having to go over. So Die Hard's a movie that shows the spirit of Christmas by having a man trying to see his family over the Christmas holiday while also combating capitalism. The creators of the movie have said on record that it's a Christmas film. Fellowship of the Ring is a fantasy movie, and just because it has elves and an old white guy with a white beard doesn't mean that it's really related to Christmas in any way. also the creator Tolkien didn't really want any allegories to Christmas. And if we're being real, it's set like 6000 BC. If we were to do that, which is way before Jesus was even a twinkle in his father's eye, we think. I don't know how that works. The whole premise of Die Hard is that premise. A man trying to go see his family, his wife and kids, over the holidays. The family's not necessarily a functional family, but he wants to go spend time with them. And he's put into this position where he has to fight to see them because of the situation that happens. It's just a wrong place, wrong time, but it's based around Christmas as a holiday.
All right, and Tyler, finish up this round.
I don't mean to offend any Christians with my Jesus comment, by the way. I want to point that out there.
Strike that from the record.
Exactly.
Tyler, 1 minute when you begin.
So I think when it comes down to it, the reason why we're differing, me and my opponent, on this is because for me, Christmas isn't just about Christmas trees, Christmas decorations, or the holiday itself. It's about the feeling. It's about spending time with your friends and family, about all those feelings that you get when you walk down, and you spend time with your family. And that's what I get from this movie. It's not so much that there's a Christmas tree in 17 different places, or that there's, people getting presents on a special day. It's about the fact that I feel like these people, that feeling of camaraderie, that feeling of family, friendship, of them banding together, this unlikely family, I think is what really resonates this movie with me and with Christmas. It just gives me the setting just gives, and this isn't a world where Christmas isn't even a thing. It's not like other fantasy movies where they have that construct. Like, this is just they don't have that, so it makes it kind of difficult. But that feeling, that friends, that family, the coming together, and just
and time. All righty, gentlemen, that was a great second round. I'm curious to see how the judges approach this. So with that said, I'm going to bring in the judges, and we're going to decide who takes this round. So we will start off with Chad. When you are ready, in 30 seconds or less, give us one primary point what really stuck out to you and who you're picking.
All right. Well, 1, I wrote this question. 2, Die Hard totally is a Christmas movie. 3, this was a very close round for me. I was like Madeeh for a very long time. But honestly, I think Tyler won it with that last little bit at the end where he just said, yeah, you can bring all those facts, but to me, it's not all about just seeing a Christmas tree. It's about the love and the family and bringing together. And I was just like, oh, damn it. I got to go with Tyler now.
Hey, sometimes that's how it goes. That's why we have different layers to these rounds. Chris, in 30 seconds or less, give us a primary point of who you're picking and why.
I feel like Holiday and Only Funny in Philadelphia with only the chart. Madeeh, he gets the question. I don't know if we're back and forth, but I see Madeeh pull it in the end. So
all right.
It's tied.
All righty. So tiebreaker is going to go to Stacy. Stacy, in 30 seconds or less, give us your primary point of why you're picking, who you're picking, and who you're picking.
I just want to start by saying Lord of the Rings trilogy is my favorite film thing ever to have existed, but I was not convinced that it's a Christmas movie.
Ooh.
So, and Die Hard is Christmas, and basically it came down to facts versus opinion and feelings for me.
There we go. And that's why we have 3 judges. Everyone takes their own approach, and I love hearing it. So Madeeh is going to be taking the second point there, but a great battle, and I'm curious to see what's going on to this third one, because this third one
shit out of me with that closing argument. I thought I lost it on the closing.
Yeah, that's I said. I love the layers. Definitely, you go back and forth. But speaking of scary, question number 3: what is the best slasher of the 2000s? Clearly, we have a couple horror fanatics over here, so I'm curious to see what their approach is going to be for this one. Tyler, you are going to be going first. 1 minute when you begin.
This question for me was really difficult because I'm a huge fan of slashers, but I had to choose Freddy versus Jason. I know that it's not there are slashers out there that are smarter. There are slashers out there that are gorier, that have better effects. But for me, this movie, first of all, is so long in the coming. I mean, ever since the tease and Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, we had been waiting even longer than the Predator versus Alien tease that we got in Predator 2. So getting to see these two come together and seeing a crossover of this magnitude is not something that we saw that much back then. And all the little details they put in, the fact that Freddy, his color palette of red would always show up when he was around and when he would kill people. Jason, it being blue whenever he kills someone. The whole way they were able to mesh these two characters together, where they still felt like they were their own people, but they were, they were in the movie
And
at the same
time. All right, we're gonna bounce back over to Madeeh after you unmute yourself. 60 seconds when you begin speaking.
Okay, so I picked one that is not commonly considered a slasher, but it still counts, and I went with American Psycho. American Psycho, directed by Mary Herron, starring Christian Bale in what was one of his first big roles before we saw him as Batman. This movie kind of turns the tables on what we expect a slasher to be by showing it through the killer's eyes. And we've kind of seen it here and there, but never really to this quality and never really to this level, where we start with this character who introduces his skincare routine and his exercise routine before he even says his own name. So you really get a really great introduction into the character, and that just kind of continues throughout the next hour 45, the whole length of the movie, where this guy's not the greatest narrator, but you're also so intrigued to see what he is going to do next in his insanity and in his psychosis. It's such a well-crafted movie, so well written, so well directed.
And time. All right. Clearly, we have the exact same movie, so I'm definitely curious to see how you guys are going to differentiate them. Tyler, 2 minutes for your rebuttal when you begin.
Yeah. For me, slashers have a certain formula, usually dumb teenagers, sex, and cheese. And this movie encapsulates all of that. They are not afraid to get extremely cheesy with it, to varying success. But the way that they're able to bring in, all the different kills, I think were fascinating. Whether or not, like when Freddy turned into the hookah caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland, like who the hell even thinks of that? The times, when Freddy tried to kill a girl and then Jason kills her and he's like, he gets all pissed because he took his kill. All those petty moments that Freddy had for Jason, which is just so Freddy, even though he's the one that brought Jason back, just so that way he could bring back the terror in Elm Street. Getting to see all the locations, the boiler room, Elm Street, the house that they're obsessed with in the Nightmare series, was fantastic. And then we still were able to bring in Crystal Lake, which I thought I thought that was really impressive, that they were like, yeah, we're gonna. I mean, the movie logic was dumb because but them bringing Jason to Camp Crystal Lake to give him home field advantage. I thought that was a really great way to be able to bring in both those locations, two very different locations. And then, the kills were awesome. I can't, like, when Freddy kept trying to kill everybody and then it wouldn't work, and you're like, okay, well, this person's safe. And then he wakes up and his dad's head just rolls into his hands and he's just like, what the hell? And Jason's there. I think they did a really good job of kind of balancing out the two different kill styles, and kind of explaining why, still giving us those Freddy kills without those actual kills, because he wasn't powerful enough. I thought that was it was a really unique way to be able to mesh their two styles, without it just being them kind of constantly trying to outdo each other.
And time. All right, Madeeh, 2 minutes for your rebuttal when you begin speaking.
So yeah, these are very different movies that we're arguing about. American Psycho is kind of a weird version of a slasher. I will admit it's not like your typical slasher, but I think everyone can kind of agree that it is still a slasher film. I don't know if there's the quantity of blood is what encapsulates it, but there's still a lot of blood in this movie. There's a lot of tension throughout of like, how is he going to kill the next person? What is he going to do to kill the next person? The scene where he's chasing the escort through the halls of his apartment complex with a chainsaw is genuinely terrifying. And then he's staring over the stairs as he drops it on top of her, which is a intensely scary scene in a movie that you don't really expect to have that kind of like huge scare. Like when you're watching this movie, you're seeing it's like, all right, yeah, he chops Jared Leto's head with the axe. He stabs this person. He stabs that person. The chainsaw scene really adds that extra layer of fear and horror to it, which I thought really elevated the movie as well. Not only that, though, it's almost like a satire and a slasher at the same time. Like, it's not spoofing slashers; it's spoofing the kind of characters that are involved in those kind of like situations. Like, he talks about Ted Bundy as like someone that he thinks up to, and referencing that and like kind of making fun of that kind of character is part of what makes this movie great, especially these days when you have a character who doesn't respect minorities, doesn't respect women, doesn't respect people of lower privilege, has the same values of a certain former president, not to get political, but it's one of those things where you're like, yeah, this one, it's still timely even 22 years after it came out. And it's not just about how the kills happen, it's also about the story of the person behind the kills, which is why I think this is overall just a better movie and a better made movie.
Time. Alrighty, gentlemen, it is time for the open debate, which, maybe you'll slash each other in this. We'll see. 4 minutes when the first person begins slashing.
So at the end of the day, we're not talking about the best made slasher film. We're talking about the best slasher film. And the reason why Freddy vs. Jason is that is because it pays off on, let's see, what was it, 03? So 20 years of slashers, count over countless amount of movies, talking about
like 13, I think at that point.
Talking about two of the most iconic slasher characters of all time, and finding a way to actually connect them together in a cohesive movie, which at the time, like I said, not really something you saw. I know now we're used to crossovers and it's no big deal, but back then, we still actually got hyped about these big crossovers. And so I think that's why it's the best slasher film of the 2000s. I understand that, like, with American Psycho, it's a little bit, it's better written, it's better made. But at the end of the day, slasher film isn't actually, for me, slasher films aren't about being the best made things out there. It's about cheesy one-liners, interesting kills, blood, teenagers being dumb, and blood.
I will say, I'm glad that like this is the argument we're having, because this makes this whole thing a lot more interesting, because I was like, this movie is not a great movie when I was watching Freddy vs. Jason. It was, honestly, I'm not a huge horror fan. Like, I respect the genre, but for me, I've over time kind of gotten bored of like the whole, oh, there's a jump scare and the killer's over there. The girl's going to trip over a branch that wasn't there before somehow. Like, I got tired of a lot of those tropes very quickly. And this movie does really have a lot of them. I thought that the first, what was it, like hour of the movie where they're just kind of finding out that there's two killers, I wasn't that intrigued. I did enjoy the party scene where Jason kind of comes through and just starts hacking away at teenagers, doesn't even care. He's just like, all right, there's a bunch of them, let me just swing my arm around and see what hits. I did enjoy that scene because that one felt, like something that made more sense. But the scene that you mentioned earlier where he's like in a dream, but Freddy's not strong enough to kill him yet, and then he wakes up and his dad's head rolls off. I want to know how long Jason was just standing there watching him. Like, that, there's so much in this movie that just doesn't make sense, like logistically, or like, I guess it's like a lot of movie logic to make this movie, but it's just, there's so much that I'm just like, all right, that's kind of weird. Jason randomly being scared of like a leaky pipe in front of him when he's in the boiler room. I was like, he's not scared of water. Like, he's traumatized by drowning, but he's not scared of just like trickling water falling in front of him. And then it just like kind of starts raining, and I'm like, he's killed people in the rain before. Like, this doesn't makes sense. I don't understand where the idea of fear of water came from in the film. I haven't seen
Surprisingly-
all of them,
But
to be fair.
surprisingly, it's actually rewrites. It started out with fear
Of
of
course it
drowning,
is.
and then got rewrote until it was just a fear of water.
Well,
Um, I guess they just wanted to. I mean, I understand the fear of fire thing with Freddy,
the
but
fear of fire makes sense. Yeah, like you got burned alive. Like, sure, be scared of fire. The guy drowned in a lake. You don't get scared of rainwater. Like it's two completely separate things. But I don't know. There was I appreciate the fact that we didn't have a lot of crossovers back then, and like it was this and then Alien versus Predator. But we've had so many since then that I've just kind of seen it done better in other forms, and it's not that good of a movie. Like it's just really not. Like, I'm sorry if you love it, but it's just really not my thing. I'll let you take the last 20 seconds.
yeah. Sorry, we hit like a natural pause there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, for me, it's always going to be the cheesy kills, the dumb logic. It's always what I'm going to be there for. That's what I love about slashers.
And time. All right, we're not going to slash your rates, but we're going to slash that round. Closing round, starting with Tyler. When you begin.
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked a lot about Freddy versus Jason. At the end of the day, the reason why I think it's the best slasher film of the 2000s isn't even the 2000s part. It's just one of the best ones that we've gotten. I mean, I know that my opponent has said, like, not great writing, all that fun stuff. But just what it meant as a crossover, the way they were able to mesh these two characters, the kills were pretty exceptional. I mean, pulling the nose off, the hookah caterpillar, Jason just backhanding someone into a tree, the brutality of it. They did such a great job of bringing these two iconic characters that were honestly kind of dying by this time together, and kind of giving people who love those characters for so long the love letter they wanted, while also getting new audiences that hadn't really experienced these guys, because I mean, God, the past 10 years, other than New Nightmare, I think they were all just awful movies. And so this kind of revitalized the genre a little bit, and reminded people that they could love the cheesy slashers. They don't always have to be high thinking like Scream.
And time. All right, I'm going to finish off this round with Madeeh. 1 minute when you begin speaking.
So I'm glad you brought it up that they kind of tried to revitalize it, but they really didn't. I mean, both of these movies ended up having, I think, their next movie just be a full-on reboot of the franchise that ended up coming out like at the turn of the decade. So it didn't really do anything to revitalize the franchises. And yeah, they're all very cheesy and they're all very corny. Freddy saying dark meat while looking at Kelly Rowland, followed by her roasting him about his penis size, was the weirdest 2 minutes I've ever witnessed. And I just felt strange watching. Like, it wasn't a great movie. This argument's really come down to what is the best film that is a slasher versus what is the best slasher themes in a film over that 10 years, really, is how we've basically argued this. And American Psycho is just the better film, I think, in both aspects. It doesn't have the corny one-liners. It has a lot of blood. It has a lot of murders. It has this character that you see and that you're intrigued by and you want to know what he's doing next, and that is a terrible person and has killed dozens of people and is told in a well-told way.
Alrighty, we are gonna slash you to the back while we bring these judges. Thank God that's the final time I have to say that. Technically, I didn't have to say it at all, but that's what I do. So we are gonna start with Diaz. In 30 seconds or less, give us your primary reason why you are picking who you're picking and who you're picking. By the way, my hat got slashed off. Sorry, that's the last one.
So, at first it went one way, but surprisingly during the open round, it kind of went in a way I was expecting, and I think Madeeh kind of shot himself by supporting Tyler a little bit in her argument about a slasher film, and Tyler and the ending and a little bit in the opening and a little bit in the debate. I think Madeeh fixated too much on Freddy vs. Jason rather than tell him more about American Psycho, and that kind of shot him in the foot in the end.
All right, so one slash for Tyler. Chad, in 30 seconds or less, give us your primary reason why you're picking who you're picking.
This one was very interesting because exactly what Chris said, Tyler kind of had the balls to come out and be like, no, mine's not even the best movie out of these two, but it is the best slasher because look, it has all of these slasher elements in this film, and it like kind of paid off in like 20 plus years of people wanting this to happen. It finally happened. And then he said, not only did it happen, but they had a really interesting story for them to come in, connect, and it wasn't just them trying to fight the whole time. There was an actual interesting plot to it. So yeah, I went with Tyler as well for this one.
Well, it looks like Madeeh got slashed on that round. Tyler slashes his way onto the scoreboard. There you go. Cancel that, Madeeh. So unfortunately, Stacy didn't get to give her opinion, but we're going to move on to the final prepared round. So no knockouts here. 2-1 in Madeeh's favor, but all the momentum might be on Tyler's side. Let's see if he rolls with that. Because question 4, going into one of my favorite actors, but unfortunately, we're not going to the positive. We're going to the negative. What is Sylvester Stallone's worst movie? Worse than an accent. We're going to start off with Madeeh, 60 seconds when you begin.
Oh, man. I hate these worst questions. I honestly do, but what can I do? So I love Sly. I think he's done some great work. I think he's a great actor, but I think there's certain roles that he fits in and certain roles he doesn't. And the movie I put forward, he doesn't fit in. But really, no one does. It's Spy Kids 3D Game Over. This movie is so awful. Oh my God. Listen, I like Spy Kids 1 and 2. I just rewatched them preparing for this. They're fun. They're enjoyable. They're corny as hell, but they're still tongue-in-cheek and they enjoy what they are and they have fun with it. Spy Kids 3D just says, hey, look, 3D glasses are a huge thing. Let's just put everything in 3D. Let's throw it in your face. Have everything break the screen as we throw it at you. And let's have Stallone play a hippie, a general, a scientist who's balding, and also a character named the Toymaker with a cameo as a news reporter who's reporting on the game that he created. This movie is such a hot pile of garbage. I'm going to try not to swear, but it's going to be very hard. It is so bad, I felt sick while watching it. It's terrible.
Time. All right, there's a little bit of a lag there. Sorry if you're the confusion, but we're going to bounce back over to Tyler, 60 seconds when you begin speaking.
Yeah, so the movie I chose is Ratchet and Clank. You probably don't know that he was in this movie because until I looked at his filmography, I didn't realize he was in this movie. He was he was Victor, the robot in there. Yeah. So I chose this movie mostly because it hurts me personally because of how much I love the franchise. That we got a movie that was half a movie where you had to go and play the game to be able to see the other half of the movie, which doesn't make sense as an idea. And they made so many different changes to the mythos that it hurts. But also, like, why would you cast Sylvester Stallone to be this robot minion dude that really doesn't do anything other than chase Clank and really not do anything at all? It's just such an odd choice. So yeah, for me, like, it's mainly like this movie is just bad. It doesn't make sense. Also, like, he must have really just wanted the paycheck to even consider taking this role because, like, it's more like why than this being bad. Like,
and time. We all want to get paid. We're gonna bounce back over to Madeeh. 2 minutes when you begin speaking.
I actually didn't mind Ratchet and Clank. I want to put that out there. It wasn't. It's not a great movie by any means, but it's not bad. It's not the worst thing he's done. Spy Kids is though. I don't know how this movie got made. I know Robert Rodriguez kind of does everything behind a movie on his own, but this was the movie I was like, maybe you should have like talked to someone. Like, this was like his Star Wars prequel for me, where I was like, you really need someone else to like keep you in check because this was terrible. It has such a phenomenal cast, but the whole movie is just everything is CG, and it's not good CG either. Like, the CG in the other movies, they don't hold up, but they're not like so in your face and terrible that you notice it. In this one, it's bad. Ricardo Montalban is a great actor, and he's just a floating head in the movie. Like, they just put him in a green screen suit and just like made him say lines which were ridiculous. Sorry, I need to like compose myself before I start screaming about this movie. There's so many plot holes in this movie. I can't even like. So here's the basic of the movie. If you guys haven't seen it, Sylvester Stallone plays an ex-spy who was trapped in a video game virtual reality that he built himself and made a prison for himself in the game, and he needs kids to come in and open it so that he can escape back to the real world. How does that? There's no logic in that. Like where you build your own prison and you trap yourself inside, and now you need children to release you. Who comes up with this? It's such a ridiculous plot. The whole time he's arguing with himself with the various versions, like the hippie and the scientist in the general, and he's just having conversations with himself, and he's like, what are you talking about? What are we supposed to do? And each of them say different things because of like the different personalities. I love Sly. There is no part of him that is a hippie. There is no part of him that is a scientist. The general makes sense, kind of, but the rest of it is so stupid. The main character falls in love with an AI girl that he met less than 24 hours ago and then finds out she's like an AI program. Everything in this movie is so ridiculously stupid and just made to sell 3D tickets.
Time. All right, so we are going to go into the opening round, and we are going to fight. Rocky pun intended. So 4 minutes when you begin. No. Yeah, no. Tyler's going.
Tyler's 2 minutes.
Yeah. I knew I was gonna mess that up eventually. Yes.
There you go.
You put so much effort into it too.
I did. I tried. Wrong lines. So strike that from the record. Tyler, 2 minutes when you begin speaking.
Where's Aaron? I want Aaron back.
Facts.
All right. So yeah, for me, I mean, for me, I think Ratchet and Clank, it's less about Sylvester Stallone's performance than it is about the movie. For me, they made a lot of really key changes that didn't make sense. Things like the Galactic Rangers from the games. So I'm a big fan of the games. So that's where a lot of this prefacing, that's where a lot of that's coming from. But a lot of it, like a lot of the changes that they made, they really they just took all the mythos, like stuck it all together, tried to see if any of it would work, which didn't really make sense, and it didn't really work out. Things like all of a sudden Nefarious being there, and he's his humanoid form before he becomes a robot, and he works for Drek, and there's all of a sudden the Galactic Rangers are a superhero group that are useless. I mean, the only thing that stuck was the fact that Quark still sucks. So for me, it's not a well done film. It doesn't honor the games that came. This came out in 2016, so we had about 14 years worth of games, one of the longest running PlayStation series. And for them just to come in and make all these changes that didn't make any sense. I mean, it was just, for me, that makes this movie really bad. Just as something that spun off from one of my favorite things, to see how they made all these changes and seeing how it just kind of made this film that was very, very meh. I mean, it wasn't very good. I mean, you got like a couple moments where you're like, oh yeah, like this is the Ratchet and Clank movie I always wanted. But for the most part, you're just like, but why? Like, which a lot of those moments were Victor, where it's just like, but why? Like, why are you here? Like, why is this character even a thing? I mean, they made Victor for the movie, for the new series, and he didn't really justify why he was there. He didn't really justify why he had to be voiced by Sylvester Stallone. And so for me, it's just not a well done movie, and it's kind of an insult to the people that love the game series.
And time. And luckily for me, I'm going to get my lines right this time. 4 minute opening with oh my god.
It's not an opening. It's 4 minute debate.
4 minute open debate. It's leave me alone. All right. Trying my best. When you guys start. That's why I debate. 4 minutes when you guys start.
So I, like you, also love the Ratchet and Clank games. I probably spent a bit too much time playing them as a kid, but I think I'm different than you. I didn't think that I hated some of the changes. Like, I get that they had to make changes because they made a movie, and you can't fit a whole game into a movie, which is why they should be made into TV shows. But that's a whole different argument. New debate. That's next week. But I don't know. I feel like they got the core of who Ratchet and Clank are as characters in the movie right. and that also helps that they had the actual voice actors doing the voices and like bringing their mannerisms and everything to it. And the rest of it was just like, yeah, Stallone's in it to be a celebrity voice, just like Rosario Dawson is in it as a celebrity voice, just like John Goodman is in it as a celebrity voice. You kind of have to have a couple of those to sell movie tickets, but that doesn't like ruin. I don't think it ruined the franchise or changed the universe too much. Some of the stuff was weird, yeah, but it doesn't affect the overall story and what we loved about the franchise, which is basically the two characters' bonds and how they go around trying to save the galaxies. Right? So it doesn't. I understand where you're coming from. I don't want to say that you're wrong, because I do get that they did change some things that some people found to be a little weird, which I feel like they're doing with Uncharted. But it doesn't make it a terrible movie. I think because we're fans of the game, we might see it as different, and different might automatically become bad. But I watched this movie with my younger cousins who haven't played the games, but they still had fun with it. They enjoyed some of the laughs. Yeah, it's not made for people our age, but if they can laugh at it and have fun with it, then that's really all they really needed to do as a movie, because then they play the games afterwards and they're like, oh, this is more fun. This is that. I mean, that's basically how I saw Ratchet and Clank as a movie. I didn't see it as like the worst of the worst. I saw it as like, all right, yeah, it's there. It's not anything offensive. It's not anything terrible. It's just meh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I guess it comes down to me personally and how I felt about the changes, which I think is what every fanboy goes through.
Yeah,
with a lot of different series.
Just go on Twitter. Just take a look on Twitter, and you'll see it.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's just always going to be a bad film because they just didn't do things. I mean, also, like, I think what makes it worse for me is it could have been a great movie series, but this did so poorly that they decided they were just going to scrap it. They also scrapped the remake game, and they luckily went back to the original formula. Yeah. But for me, like, it killed a lot of potential. It's not like Spy Kids where there were already entries beforehand before he got involved and ruined it. But like with this one, like, it was the first, and this movie was just so poorly made that it was the only. It wasn't the first anymore. It was the only.
Which, I mean, yeah, but that just they can always try it again. That's the other thing with Spy Kids. When you have it as the third movie, this like the biggest pile of garbage, you have to have it. Like, you can just end it there, but then they continued it later on. But we don't talk about that one. That's where I want to kind of say, like, the Spy Kids one, because it's in a universe already, and they establish this universe and then go into it and then pull out this crap box with weird animated toads on pogo sticks and like the weird lava animation that they put in, and everything in this movie just is offensive to look at, let alone to watch.
But what about the Avengers level team up at the end where everybody showed up?
Oh my god, it was.
Yeah. And Tony Banderas.
They even say, like, they put the labels underneath, like Dad, Mom, what the hell's the machete? Like, just you saw this movie. It felt like a spoof of the franchise when it was the same guy doing it. Like, it just felt like he was shitting on himself, which was so stupid to watch. Oh my god.
All right. So as we obviously know, I'm going to get this right, but Madeeh, 2 minute or 1 minute closing when you start.
I'm proud of you, Henry. Okay. Good CGI is unnoticeable and serves a purpose. Bad CGI is noticeable and excessive. Spy Kids 3 somehow goes the next level and just makes the entire movie CGI and really just puts a piece of shit in your hand and says, here you go, happy birthday, and expects us to enjoy it. Sylvester Stallone is horribly miscast in this. At least as the robot, Victor Von Ion, his voice kind of fits the character. Like, it's a menacing robot villain. You kind of want a gruff Stallone type voice to fit into it. I would say that the difference between these two films is that while we're fans of Ratchet and Clank and we may not enjoy it as much as we enjoy the games because the games are pretty spectacular, it was still enjoyable for kids. And it didn't shit on the franchise overall. Spy Kids did. Spy Kids 1 and 2 are enjoyable movies. Spy Kids 3 just says, no, we don't care what you liked. We're not even going to involve the spy part anymore. We're just going to say, here's a cameo by Selena Gomez. Here's George Clooney doing a Stallone impression for some stupid reason.
And time. Tyler, 1 minute closing when you begin speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Ratchet and Clank, I think it's just the fact that it killed all the potential with that movie. I mean, there was so many ways that they could have continued the series. There were so many games that they could have drawn inspiration from, going Commando and onward. Even though they kind of, for some reason, decided that Up Your Arsenal and the first one should become this mashed together, which upset me because Up Your Arsenal is my favorite game. But whatever. But just, I mean, this movie just didn't really have like I want to say like a reason for existing. I mean, doing a movie, I remember being very upset that to get the full story of this story, you had to play the game and watch the movie, which sounds good in theory, but it's not so good when you're all of a sudden missing key points and you're making all these jumps that don't really make any sense. It was a really weird experiment that ultimately didn't pay off. And I mean, honestly, like I said, the whole like having this cast seemed good on paper, but ultimately it just didn't really make sense just to have them in there.
And time. All right. Well, initially they were reluctant to talk about worse, but I feel like there was a lot of passion in this one. So we're gonna.
That's why I don't want to talk about it, because it just makes me upset.
I'm angry now. I'm gonna go kick a trash can.
Damn trash can. You're making me beat up grass. Bring in our judges, and we're gonna potentially have the last word. We're gonna go into round 5 of the blind round. So Chad, in 30 seconds or less, what were your overall thoughts on this round, and give us your opinion on who you're picking.
That's a pretty good one. I think they probably both picked pretty bad movies. I saw Spy Kids 3 in the theater. I remember liking it, but I was a child. I went with Tyler on this one, and the big reason why is because, like, yeah, they're both bad movies, but like he said that you have to actually play the games and do other stuff to get the full story, and it doesn't really like lend to an actual like complete film even. So that was what sold me.
All right, and Stacy, in 30 seconds or less, give us your overall opinion on why you're picking who you're picking.
I went with Madeeh. The biggest reason was I heard a lot from him about why Clank wasn't the worst, and I heard very little about why Spy Kids wasn't the worst.
All right, and we are going to go to the tiebreaker. Chris Diaz, in 30 seconds or less, give us your reason why you're picking who you're picking, and let us know if we're moving on to round 5 or game over, man.
Listen, I hate both of these movies. I'm a passionate fan of both of these two. But yeah, I had to go with Madeeh in the end. Even when Tyler also thought I agree with him about the Avengers thing, that kind of similar to the last round. Tyler kind of shot himself in the foot, and I heard more about Madeeh, about how shitty Spy Kids 3D is. I especially loved the take a shit at your birthday present, give it to you. Hey, happy birthday! Look, that Madeeh won in the end. It was close though. Both shitty movies, but Madeeh just gave more example.
Alrighty, so with that said, and your winner, Madeeh Raymond, with a final score of 3-1. Absolutely. Madeeh, you pulled it out, but unfortunately, I want to talk to Tyler first because I want to hear what he has to say. So we're gonna bounce over to Tyler, our second place finisher. Tyler, this was a different experience from your first one and your not existent second one. What were your overall thoughts on just the format and the structure of Battleground now that you're starting to get accustomed to it a little bit, but also reflect kind of on your performance tonight?
I like the format. It really comes down to the questions. I mean, this time the questions, there were very obvious ones to choose, and there are ones that you could try to make an argument for. I'm going against a great competitor like Madeeh. I have to bring my A game, and unfortunately, I think for me, like it's really going to be for the future, going to be learning. Like I can't try to be the fastest when I'm choosing my answers.
Yeah,
because at that point, like I'm gonna be honest, like half the time I think of like what's gonna be the most fun, not usually the best debating, like the most debatable. So I think for me, it's really gonna be taking my time and kind of thinking through what I want to choose for my answers, so that way I can be able to back it up. Because I came in here hoping to do my best, but Madeeh's answers already were like I said, for like questions 1 and 4, I would just like, well, yeah, I mean, obviously this is what we should do. And so I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna do my best here. And then and he came in with like facts and stuff, and it's like, oh my god. So it's definitely just like learning more about my just learning how to debate better, I think, is really what I need to do to improve. I mean, I think I had some good arguments in here, but I definitely, some of these answers I wish I could go back and change. So that way I'd be able to put up more of a fight. But no, Movie Battleground, I think the format's really good. I had a blast, except for when I was trying to be like, yeah, you should choose mine, even though I would choose the other one. But yeah, no, so it was a good time. I'm looking forward to the future, and I've learned a lot more probably in this defeat than I did in my first match, and a hell of a lot more than in my second one. So
yeah, that's something that I love about the concept of debating, because it's like you said, it's not necessarily about the best answers or the right answer. It's just the most appropriate answers. You kind of have to go with what makes the most sense, and you kind of have to also get in the minds of potential judges and how they're going to think. And it's like the one where you went with your feelings on the Christmas one. You were like, yeah, at this point it got to a stretch right those 30 seconds, like, yeah, you might think yours is a Christmas, I might think mine is a Christmas. I'm like, yeah, let's let's talk about it. So I love the approach that you took there, and you won a voter over for that one. So I definitely love that, and I'm definitely excited to see when you come back. There are some things behind the scenes that we could potentially get into. We don't have a specific match for you yet, but after Performance Day, you've earned the right to be higher on the docket for a future one, so you'll be definitely reached out for that. Definitely excited to see you learn some more, prep some more, and just adjust your your answers in the future. So great performance. Way to avoid that knockout. That's always definitely good for your confidence. When you lose, no one wants to get knocked out. So congratulations on learning and continuing your future journey in Movie Battleground. All right, we are going to jump back over to our winner, Madeeh. So this is something that you kind of hinted at in your opening, where you're like, prep is not necessarily your forte, but today or recently you're like, oh, I'm actually gonna start taking this seriously, and it showed.
It's crazy.
You mentioned your stats and all that stuff that you like to do, so that was always interesting to hear. Coming out with the statistics and a lot of the backup for your points. So what was your thoughts on your performance, and how are you excited to move over into the next round since you are 3-0?
I mean, okay, so going over the performance, I feel like I did well, but also I feel like I could have done quite a bit better. There was a lot of points that, especially playing someone who hasn't really had as much experience in this, you kind of don't know where their headspace is at and like what they might bring up and stuff. So, when I was, my first match was against Madeeh Ur, I was like, all right, yeah, I know kind of where Madeeh Ur might go. I know kind of stuff he might pull, what kind of things he's into, what I can touch on. And then with Ryan, again, I've seen him play. I've judged his matches before, so I kind of know the routes he can take and like stuff like that. With someone like Tyler, man, like he being an unknown was definitely in his favor, but also like everything that I thought he might say, he said none of it. I have like 12 pages of notes of like, all right, if he says this, combat with this. If he says this, combat with this. And I have nothing. Literally maybe 2 points that he said I actually prepared for, and I was like, Jesus, this guy's just pulling shit out that I never would have thought of. But honestly, no, that's not only just like credit to him because of like how how good he was at preparing for these questions, because obviously like going out back at his answers, some of them are very like not the obvious answer and not the answer that anybody would necessarily think of. I mean, Tobey Maguire being played by Andrew Garfield was one that was like, I gotta see where he's going with this, because there's nothing that I can think of that was like, what does he want to see? Like what all of the stuff that he put forward, man, was just such a pleasure to debate against, because it's such a like, he had such a cool mind of like what was fun. And it like what is fun but might not be the best debatable, whatever, but it still put like such a fire in me that I was like, I gotta figure out where he's gonna come with this. And like preparing for it was just a lot of fun to do as well.
And that's like I was kind of hinting when I talked about earlier with him. That's why I love the debate. It's not about trivia. It's not about who knows more stuff. It's how you can come up with interesting points.
Exactly.
And you can just do some research. And
any other 3 judges might have given it to him 3-0. Like it's honestly just the luck of the draw on the day as well, man. Like Tyler is like, honestly, I hope he sticks around because this was one of the more interesting and fun debates that I've had, and I've had like what 12 at this point. Man, you and I have been in these leagues since like 2016.
Yep.
And like this was probably one of the more like I've had a lot of fun ones. Like my one against Manning was a lot of fun. My one against Kirk, I remember because of like how well prepared he was and stuff like that. But this was probably the one that I had like the most interesting preparation for. Leading up to it, and I love that.
And that's like I said, that's why I love this. So congratulations to you.
And our team match that we did against each other. So we gotta talk about that.
Yeah, I always love talking about that. So congratulations on your win, but I have some good news, some bad news. The good news is you're moving on.
I know the bad news.
The good news is you're moving on to the semifinals. The bad news is you're going to be playing
fucking
Jeremy Adams. What is your thoughts with that? Obviously, we saw your initial reaction right there, but what are your thoughts on that? And are you excited?
I'm definitely excited.
Okay,
but also nervous. Jeremy, I think this is like if someone was like going into the semifinals and you got to face against like Michael Jordan. You know, like he's a really great debater. I mean, statistically, I think he's got other than his match that came out against Jordan. I think he's only been knocking people out. And like when we were first seeing the brackets, I was like, all right, I'm either going to have to face Jeremy or I'm going to have to face Joe at some point if I want to like win this. And those are the 2 guys that I'm like, yeah, those are the guys that I got to beat to get to the top. And they're both still in it. So I guess Jeremy's the first one that I got to try and take down. Obviously, look, I have nothing but respect for Jeremy. That guy's been around since, I think, the beginning, like you and I. But this is going to be I want
to great timing win. For you to be in the mental mindset of
exactly, yeah. Like me actually trying to take it seriously and like actually putting the research in and trying to figure out where he's going. And the difference is Jeremy's been in debates a lot, so I can definitely go back and research how he goes through.
A lot of tape.
There's a lot of tape on both of us, which is kind of a pro and con on this end. But I'm really excited because I know he's going to bring it, and I love it when people like really bring it against me. But this is probably, and no respect to anyone I face, but this is probably going to be the toughest one that I've gone up against. And Ryan has a championship belt in one of the leagues. Jeremy, I thought, should have had a belt a couple times already, but he just doesn't have it yet, and that's just how it's been. But This is terrifying but exciting at the same time.
There you go. So you heard it from Madeeh himself. So congratulations on your win, and can't wait to see what you bring to the table against Jeremy. So with that said, that is today's episode of Movie Battleground, Madi Raymond versus Tyler Burch. Thank you very much to our judges today, Chris Diaz, Stacy, and Chad. And obviously, shout out to Aaron Knoll behind the scenes for doing everything he does. Always a pleasure having him just around, and thank you for bringing this to the table. So with that said, my name is Henry Confidential. I don't know exactly who watched everything and who judged all my mess ups. This was a lot of fun behind the scenes and on screen as well. So Henry Confidential, this is the Movie Battleground. Shout out Aaron and everyone over at TMG, and shout out the competitors and our judges. We are out of here. Bye, guys.